Okay, good morning. So today I want to begin with compare and contrast between Putnam and Wittgenstein on meaning, and then we'll go on to look at various aspects of how to develop Wittgenstein's own picture. So here's a quotation from Putnam. Cut the pie any way you like, meanings just ain't in the head. Really that could have come straight out of Wittgenstein. I mean the style is quite different, but he doesn't have Putnam's folksy charm. But the message is very similar, right? I mean, when Wittgenstein is saying, you've got a teacher saying, this is water, that's water, that's water, that's water, that's not water, that's not water, and the child has to get what the teacher is after, pull it together, grasp the meaning in a flash, and the natural picture is that what goes on is that the child gets the right kind of image in their head, and as a result of that, can go on to say, this is water, that's over there is water, and so on. And Wittgenstein's point about this is, the image does no work. All that happens is that the teacher gives all these examples, and then after a bit, the pupil works with examples in the same way as the teacher did. The idea of an image in the head, it doesn't make any difference to what happens next. It can't. Its meaning is only explained by what happens in concrete instances. And when you think about what Putnam is saying about Earth and Twin Earth, the message there is really the same. Water means something different on Earth to what it means on Twin Earth. Though the Oscar on Earth and Twin Oscar on Twin Earth have exactly the same images in their minds. So what's giving meaning to the sign is not the image in the mind. It's something about the context in which the image is occurring. That was the point about Twin Earth. It's also the point about brains and vats. If you think about what Putnam says in Brains and Vats, he says, let me see if I can remember, something about an ant with a mental image of Winston Churchill wouldn't be representing trees. No, that's a bit early. Let me try that again. If you've got a mental image of a tree, right, that's not you representing trees, just because you've got a mental image with the right pictorial properties. What makes it a representation of trees is the context that the image is figuring in. Or if the ant draws something in the sand that looks just like Winston Churchill, that doesn't make it a picture of Winston Churchill, because what matters is the context in which the image was generated, and there isn't the right kind of causal context for that to be representing Churchill. So Putnam's point there is really, is there a difference between Putnam's point and Wittgenstein's? The negative point about the role of mental imagery in meaning seems to be exactly the same. Is that right? I mean, the style is so different, but the message seems to be just the same. So then you might ask, well, what is it that Putnam thinks fixes reference? And there seem to be two lines of thought in Putnam about what's fixing reference. One is the causal connections between you and the substances in your environment, what substance it is that you're encountering and responding to when you use the word water or whatever it is. And the other thing is for many terms like molybdenum or elm or beech, you might not be able to differentiate these things very well yourself, but you rely on the existence of experts in your community, and they sort out for you what the word means. So with natural kinds, the picture is that there's an underlying structure producing various observable characteristics of the thing. You pick up on those observable characteristics. It's wet, it's transparent, it participates in the evaporation, precipitation, condensation, precipitation cycle. It has all these observable characteristics of water, and you therefore use a sign, and what you're doing there is responding to that underlying structure. And in the case of a more arcane natural kind, like molybdenum or aluminum, then it may be that what's going on is that experts pick up on those observable characteristics of the stuff. Experts give it a name, you just get the word from the expert, you rely on the expert to give meaning to the sign. It happened to me a little while ago, you ring someone up, and a childish voice at the other end says, Daddy's at a conference on low temperature physics, and presumably you're not dealing there with a 10-year-old who knows exactly what low temperature physics is, but how should I say, they are operating as a mouthpiece, they pick up the word from other people, and it would be perfectly possible to say, no, that's not right, it was really very low temperature physics, or high temperature, whatever. You can get that. Okay, so Putnam, on the other hand, doesn't have anything like Wittgenstein's notion of a custom. I can't see that there's anything there that maps onto Wittgenstein's notion of a custom. So that raises the question whether you really need the notion of a custom, and can't these appeals to causation and the division of linguistic labour do the work that Wittgenstein is trying to make the notion of a custom do? I don't myself see that they can, but the situation is quite complicated. There might be something I'm missing. Division of linguistic labour first. I really glossed over division of linguistic labour in the class because I can't see myself that it's so fundamental to our use of language. And it's definitely true and important that when we use words, when you use terms like low temperature physics, then there is a generally recognised body of experts on these things, and you give way to them, you defer to them as to what the right use of the term is. But that just presupposes that for the experts, whoever they are, whatever the subject is, for the experts there's got to be such a thing as going right or wrong. You haven't explained what going right or wrong consists in for them. All you've said is that you'll accept them as authoritative on whether you're going right or wrong in your use of the sign. But there's still a more basic question, whether it is for them to be going right or wrong in their use of the sign. So that leaves us with causal encounters. And the basic problem with these causal encounters with a substance or a person or whatever it is that you're talking about is that it's very hard to see how causal encounters of themselves can be what generate the existence of standards of rightness and wrongness. And just things colliding with one another, things impacting on one another, doesn't of itself mean that there's any right or wrong here. So how can it be that substances or people impacting on my use of language can mean that there's such a thing as going right or wrong here? Dresky's idea was we can see how causation becomes something normative, something for which there are standards, if you talk about the biological function of something being to causally indicate the presence of something else. So if you've got a structure in your brain whose biological function is to indicate the presence of water, then you can make sense of that biological structure, getting it right or wrong when it causally responds to water. But the basic problem there was that point that biological optimality is not the same thing as the optimality of truth. That's to say, do I need to go over that? Yes, okay. What's helpful for an organism, what's adaptive for an organism, might not be the same thing as getting it right. If you've got an organism in a water-poor environment, let's suppose you've got an organism in a water-poor environment, it might actually be quite adaptive for that organism to get false positives about the presence of water. Right? It will keep its spirits up. It will keep it trying, even when there's nothing particular to try for. It may help it in navigating around. When these examples of thinking you're more popular than you are, thinking you have more control over what you're doing than you really do, thinking the future is going to work out better than it does, what's biologically optimal, what's adaptive, is not necessarily getting it right or getting it wrong. Suppose you're a presidential candidate and you're wondering who's going to win the next election. I mean, presumably, there's only one rational answer to have at the moment, right? One of these guys should be thinking, yes, I'm going to win, and the other guy should be thinking, well, looking at it, looking at the facts, the probability is I'm not going to win, right? But nobody for a moment expects that the candidate should really think like that. What you really expect is that they're both thinking, yes, we're going to do it. That's adaptive, right? That's what's optimal. That's what's normatively optimal. So what's normatively optimal for an organism need not be truth. What's adaptively optimal for an organism need not be truth. Okay, I mean, presumably a similar point applies even to humble bacteria. Right, that's what I mean about it. Yeah, some kind of optimism might be adaptive for many, many animals in many different situations. So biological optimality, it looks like there's a difference between biological optimality and the optimality of truth. And once you take that away and you try and do something more austere, like Fodor's causal asymmetry theory, then you're just left with a pattern of causal relations, and it's very difficult to see how a mere pattern of causal relations. You remember causal asymmetry? If the one causal connection hadn't existed, the other wouldn't have. Sorry? The high pressure, low pressure, exactly. Yeah. Should you do that again? Horses and cows and all that. Okay, you got enough of that. Okay. So there you've got counterfactual relations between causal connections, but that's all. And how can a mere set of counterfactual connections among causal relations constitute the existence of standards of right and wrong? So I think Putnam and Wittgenstein share the negative point about images, but I think, so far as I can see, Putnam's appeals to causation and division of linguistic labour give out on you. So I think we have to look at Wittgenstein's notion of custom or practice, and it looks like the idea of the notion of custom or practice is going to explain how there can be right or wrong in your use of a word. But then the next question is, how does that work? What is a custom or practice? How does that? What are the mechanics? How does that explain the existence of standards of rightness and wrongness in the use of language? And also looking at Wittgenstein, you have to acknowledge that he never actually frames it like that in terms of explanation. So I just want to raise this as a background issue here. Is that even the right question to be asking? That may be the wrong question to be asking in the text. Okay, so that's how I think Wittgenstein and Putnam connect. Strong agreement on a negative point, and Wittgenstein's promising something more, and Putnam can deliver on the positive picture. Are we all comfortable? I don't mean physically. Are you mentally comfortable? Are you intellectually comfortable? Is that okay? Okay. I just want to go over something I touched on fairly briefly last time. This distinction between thinking of meaning in terms of semantic value and thinking of meaning in terms of use. Because in the face of it, that's a big contrast between Putnam and indeed everyone else we've looked at on one hand and Wittgenstein on the other. So there's a general notion of semantic value. The semantic value of a term is how that term contributes to determining the truth or falsity of any sentence containing it. So for a name, the semantic value of the name is... What is the semantic value of a name? Object. Yeah, the object. What object? Right, the object it refers to. Yeah, what he said. Right. Yes? What is the semantic value of a predicate? It is a mapping from objects onto truth or falsity. So if you've got a sentence, Raleigh smokes, and you know what Raleigh refers to, you know which object, and you know what function from objects onto truth values smokes is the semantic value of smokes, then you have determined the truth or falsity of Raleigh smokes. Yeah, it will depend on whether that function maps this object onto truth. Yes? Okay. This is really so important. I think this is the centre of many philosophical questions. So I just want to take this quite slowly. We had this last time. Suppose you say Gödel refers to Gödel, and is human is true of an object just when that thing is human, then the semantic value of not is given by the truth table. Okay, this is your opportunity to pause if you think this is not quite clear, that the reference, the mapping from objects onto truth values and the truth table, they're all parallel to one another. And they're a little bit different, because when you have a sentence like Gödel isn't human, then the referent of Gödel, in some sense, is what you're talking about. The semantic value of is human isn't usually what you're talking about, though it can be the topic of the sentence. The truth table of not is never what you're talking about. You see what I mean? So, if you wanted to talk about the truth table, you have to get a name for the truth table and refer to it. Yeah. Just the mere fact that you're using the word not in a sentence does not mean that you're talking about a truth table. So there's a notion of what a term is about that is different to the notion of semantic value. And these three things are all very different when you ask questions like, what is a sentence about? But if you just get this abstract conception of semantic value as how the term contributes to determining the truth or falsity of a sentence containing it, then it's then when you've got that very abstract conception that you see the parallel here. This is really important. Is the parallel clear? Probably clearer than that. Okay, suppose you want to explain the meaning of and. How would you explain the meaning of and, class? A truth table, yes, very good. Okay, so this is a little bit fancy, right? For not, it's just 2 lines. Here's 4 lines. I hope I've done this right. I always make mistakes with the truth tables. Yeah, that's right. Yes, yes, I say that's okay. Okay, so if they're both true, then A and B is true, and if only one of them is true, or if they're both false, then A and B is false. Yeah, so that's a map from truth values to truth values, and that gives you the semantic value of and. Now, on the face of it, that talk about semantic value is exactly what Wittgenstein is throwing out. It's very natural to think that's how you know the meaning of and. You know the truth table. Yeah, that's how you know the meaning of Gödel, or you know the meaning of his human. You know the semantic value. That would be the thing that tells you how to use the term in particular cases. So that if you know what that map is from objects onto truth values for is human, then when you're confronted with something, when you're confronted with a chair and asked, is that human? Then what you do is you consult your knowledge of what the map is, and then you see if that thing gets mapped onto truth or onto falsity, and then you give your answer. So the map here will be like the thing in the middle, the thing that, like the mental image, it will be the thing that you measure the object against to see whether it satisfies the predicate. Yeah? It will be the thing in your head, the rule that you use to determine whether or not the word applies to the thing. Similarly, your knowledge of the semantic value of Gödel, Gödel refers to Gödel, that will be the thing in the middle that when you encounter something and you ask, is that Gödel? Then you'll consult your knowledge of the reference of the sign to see if the thing in front of you is that reference. And Wittgenstein's point is that that notion of semantic value is the thing that does no work. There's only your applications of the word in particular places. So if you're explaining the meaning of A and B, it would be better to forget about the truth table and just look at the rules of inference for A and B. So what is the introduction rule for A and B? What is the introduction rule for AND? You get A, and you get B, and you can draw the conclusion A and B. I don't say it's that deep an insight, but that's what it is, right? And what is the elimination rule for A and for AND? If you get A and B, then you get A, and if you get A and B, then you get B. So that's a pattern of use for A and B. And that's a different thing to the truth table. And in Wittgenstein's picture, it would be better to say you learn the meaning of AND by learning the pattern of use. You just do operate in this way in particular cases. This in fact, is how you do reason. That's all the hard fact about the use of language. If you look at what someone is doing in their use of AND, that describes what they do. That describes their custom of using AND. And this thing is just idle. If you forgot about this thing and said, well, let's just stick with the pattern of use, you'd have all the facts. So all that work you did in truth tables was really beside the point, right? Because all there really is the pattern of use. So, so is that clear? That will be what replaces the talk about truth tables and Wittgenstein's account. Yeah? There's your chance to protest if this is not completely. Some of you look extremely puzzled. Yeah, yeah.
So, is that not to say that the truth table is false? It's not really what's using it.
That's right. It's not to say the truth table is wrong. It's just to say it doesn't do any work in our understanding of the sign. Once you've got an understanding of AND, you might draw up a truth table. But the great mistake is to think that the truth table is fundamental and you can derive your use of AND from it. Yeah. I mean, actually, in this case, when we talk about adding one or water, or these other examples we had, or having an image of blue, or having an image of a cube or whatever, then in a way it's relatively informal that you can't derive the use from that knowledge of semantic value. But in this case, there's really something like a proof of this. Because suppose you didn't have any patterns of use for logical signs. Okay, suppose you got and, or, if, then, the basic logical signs, and you don't know any of this pattern of use. All you know is the truth table. So suppose you get truth tables for all your basic logical signs. Are you going to be able to derive the pattern of use from that? You should be able to do it. Yeah, how would that go?
Because, you have A and B are true, and you should be able to infer it.
Right. Isn't that intuitive? I agree, that's really intuitive. You should be able to think, well, if you get A true and B true, then you get A and B. So that will give you the introduction rule. Yeah? And if you've got A and B true, then you must have A true, and you must have B true. So since when you get A and B true, you must have A true, you can get the first elimination rule, and since when you get A and B true, you get B true, then you get the second elimination rule. Yeah? So I just derive the rules of inference from the semantic value. That's the way the classical picture says it should go. Yeah? You know how to apply the term because you know the semantic value. Yeah? You know how to apply the word Gödel because you know what it stands for. You know how to apply the word water because you know what it stands for. But listen to what I did there. I just said, if you've got A and B true, then you get A true, and you get B true. So I just used some rules of inference. I used the rules of inference for if then. Yeah? And when I said, if you get A and B true, you get A true, and you get B true. So you get A true. That's using the elimination rule for AND. Yeah? And when you think about it, there isn't any way around that, because deriving is using inference rules. Yeah? So that's using rules like this. So in order to derive anything from this, I'm already going to be using the inference rules. That's just a brick wall. There is no way around that. Yeah? So the most you could hope would be to fiddle about with which particular inference rules you're using. But in general, if you take all the logical constants simultaneously and say I get all their truth tables, if you took a child that was incapable of logical reasoning, didn't have any of the principles of use for the logic of logical particles, and you said, there you go, there's all the truth tables. Now get on with it. You can do it, right? Yeah, if that was your position, you'd be absolutely helpless. So in this case, the Wittgenstein general point can really just be proved. You can't, in general, derive the pattern of use from the semantic value because the pattern of use is required to do the derivation. Yeah? Okay, you can pause me at any point. Okay. So if we're going to replace the talk about semantic value here for Gödel and for is human by something like this, yeah, then what we would need is something like, instead of Gödel refers to Gödel, you'd have something like, in these circumstances, say Gödel is F. When you're presented with a bespectacled, sinister mathematician who proved the incompleteness of arithmetic, say, that's Gödel, right? Gödel is smoking a pipe. Yeah, that's just the basic rule. And if you accept Gödel is smoking a pipe, you can conclude from that something like, there must be a mathematician who proved the incompleteness of arithmetic smoking a pipe. Something like that. So the inputs and the outputs for your use of the sign will replace that talk about semantic value. Yeah. So we really throw out everything you did in the first part of the course. And, I'm sorry about that. But, there you go. The due course will throw all this out too. No, actually. Okay? Okay. And similarly for is human, you'd say is human, instead of saying is human is true of an object just when that thing is human, instead of specifying the semantic value for the sign, you just say when you'll use it in these circumstances, when confronted by this kind of thing, say X is human, and on the other hand, the elimination rule will be if you accept X is human, then conclude the circumstances must have been H. However exactly you specify what should trigger your use of the term human. And there is a question here about how you formulate these patterns of use.